slur, I should say. He said he was going to survive those controversies.
All right, Nick Valencia, sorry to interrupt. We need to go live right now to this press conference right now. We're dealing with tax reform and the Dodd-Frank regulations. Let's listen.
Your core principles of financial regulations have been guiding our work here and will continue to do so. I am happy to report that we are busy in our review, not just of Dodd-Frank, but the broader economic framework as well. We have met with stakeholder groups of hundreds of people representing small banks, big banks, non-financial institutions, consumers, and regulators. This review is thorough and mindful of our goals. We look forward to delivering our findings in June. Your directives today further highlight the priority of this administration places on fair and efficient regulatory relief. They provide further focus and depth to our mission here. We're going to go back and look to see if the processes regarding orderly liquidation authority and financial stability oversight designations make sense. We now have a targeted mandate in place to review both. As instructed, I will report back to you on our findings. In the interim, you are calling for a much-needed timeout from the Financial Stability Council's process for designating financial institutions as systemically important. Until that review is completed, we have agreed not to designate any new non-bank financial institutions, except in cases of emergency. Our goal is to make this smarter, more effective process that reduces the kind of systemic risks that harmed so many Americans during the financial crisis of 2008. On orderly liquidation authority, we are going to look closely to evaluate whether its framework is consistent with your core principles. We intend to provide a clear analysis of the extent to which OLA encourages inappropriate risk-taking and the extent of taxpayer liability. We will also note where additions to the bankruptcy code may be a more appropriate avenue for resolving financial distress. Finally, today's executive order launches a re-examination of last year's major tax regulations to make sure they do not unduly strain Americans and the economy. The order calls for revision or repeal of harmful rules that impose unnecessary costs and complexity on taxpayers. I look forward to taking a hard look at the immense regulatory burden of our tax code, which consumes billions of productive hours in compliance costs. A significant amount of time has passed since the crisis. With the passage of time and with your leadership, we are now well positioned to evaluate what works and what doesn't. We believe in clear and effective regulations, but not regulations for its own sake. Where we can do so, we will lift the burden of excessive regulation to make sure that banks can lend, small businesses can borrow, and Americans' work can thrive. So on behalf of the entire staff here at Treasury, who work tirelessly to make this country prosperous and safe, I want to extend our warmest welcome, ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Steve. I just want to thank you. Thank you very much, Steve. Great honor, I must say. It's a great pleasure to be at the United States Treasury Department and to meet so many dedicated public servants. I went through that beautiful hallway with those incredible paintings of past secretaries, and it was really very interesting. I want to read every one. I want to learn about every one of them, but we have one that I hope will go down as one of the greats. I think Hamilton is tough to beat, but maybe you can do that too. We'll take it, right? But thank you very much. The Treasury Department is the guardian of America's wealth and a worldwide symbol of American prestige. This department was first led by the same gentleman, Alexander Hamilton, a man who understood that the government must protect the jobs of its citizens and the wealth of our nation. Secretary Mnuchin, who I've known for so long, and he's so good and so smart and so financially adept, is working very hard every day to do just that, to protect the working citizen of America and to safeguard our finances from anyone, anybody, any nation who would try to take advantage of the United States. His vast experience and financial talent are now being put into service on behalf of the American people, and you'll see what I mean very soon. We have taken unprecedented action to bring back our jobs and return power to our citizens. It's been taken away. We've lifted one terrible regulation after another at a record clip, from the energy sector to the auto sector, and we have many more to go, and that's going to be happening over the next, I would say, 4 to 5 weeks. And we've begun a historic effort to protect our manufacturing and our manufacturing businesses, companies, and our workers from unfair foreign trade. Protecting our Treasury also means getting other countries to finally pay their fair share for the cost of defense and many other global projects that for too long have fallen under our guidance and unfortunately fallen under the United States taxpayer expense. And we're going to end that. We're going to end it quickly. We want fairness. We don't want to take advantage of anyone. We want fairness. We're now in the process of rebuilding America, and there's a new optimism sweeping across our country like people have not seen in many, many decades. We're here today to continue this great economic revival. I will be signing 3 presidential directives to further protect our workers and our taxpayers. The first executive action instructs Secretary Mnuchin to begin the process of tax simplification. Such a big thing. People can't do their returns. They have no idea what they're doing. They're too complicated. This regulatory reduction is a first step toward a tax reform that reduces rates, provides relief to our middle class, and lowers our business tax, which is one of the highest in the world and has stopped us from so much wealth and productivity. Secretary Mnuchin is a leader in our effort to make America competitive again. We're going to make it great again. We're going to make it strong again. We're going to make it safe again. And we're going to make it competitive again. I'm also issuing 2 directives that instruct Secretary Mnuchin to review the damaging Dodd-Frank regulations that fail to hold Wall Street firms accountable. I mean, they've done really, in many cases, the opposite of what they were supposed to. These regulations enshrine too big to fail and encourage risky behavior. We're taking steps to make our economy more fair and prosperous for all. As part of our broader financial strategy, we're working to open up lending to small businesses and entrepreneurs, including our incredible women entrepreneurs who are doing better and better and better. We want opportunity for everyone and in every single part of our country. Secretary Mnuchin and my entire administration are working around the clock to help struggling Americans achieve their financial dreams, earn a great paycheck, have a job that they love going to every single day, and have real confidence in the future. Together, we will restore prosperity to this nation, a nation that we so dearly love, and to bring people who call this home into a great, great way of living and a great way of life. They're going to be thrilled. We're going to be thrilled. And you're going to be seeing some very, very major changes. You've already seen them. I don't know if anybody's looked recently, but you looked at optimism indexes that are just coming out, manufacturing in particular, where it's up to the highest point it's ever been, 93%. It was a 27% increase over the last one. So I just want to thank everybody for being here. This is such a privilege for me to sign. This is really the beginning of a whole new way of life that this country hasn't seen in really many, many years. I want to thank you, and I want to God bless America. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Okay. Thank you. this is identifying and reducing tax regulatory burdens. That covers a lot of territory, believe me. Senator, how about you get the first one, okay? Can you handle that?
I think I'll give it to the powers.
Okay.
It's for my son.
Our son.
Oh, that's even better, I like it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, hey, great boy. This is the subject of financial stability, the Oversight Council. Very important. Okay, this one, thank you. Thank you. This is orderly liquidation authority. Doesn't sound like much, but it is. That's a biggie. It doesn't sound good, but it is.
That's right, we're in financial services.
That's right.
It's a big for us.
Thank you, Mr. President.
And we'll be having a big announcement on Wednesday having to do with tax reform. The process has begun long ago, but it really formally begins on Wednesday, so go through it.
I will, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
We were just watching live President Trump signing 3 executive orders dealing with the banking industry, taxes, and there at the end also saying there'll be a big announcement next Wednesday dealing with tax reform, one of his campaign promises. I want to bring in former Wall Street executive and financial expert Alexis Glick joining us now to discuss what just happened. I mean, there was a lot of pomp and circumstance there, but what I heard him say is some of what he signed simply is to review what the current system is and then figure out a plan moving forward. Did he just do anything that changes where we are currently at?
It doesn't change where we're at this moment in time, but it was really shrewd. And let me explain a couple of reasons why. Number one, he called the tax simplification, identifying and reducing tax regulation and the burden for consumers. What it's going to allow the Treasury Secretary in this tax reform process, which we know is going to take far longer than that initial August timeline, it's going to allow him and the Treasury to really get to work to scrub some of those tax regulations that were put into effect into 2016 and see how, as they reform the tax code, what are those things that are the most cumbersome. For example, as he talked about corporate taxes, some corporations are domiciling overseas because of tax breaks. Let's bring their money back into the United States. That's one. Number two, when you think about what he's talking about, the liquidation of banks, or asking the Financial Stability Oversight Council to look at what are systemically risky institutions. What's really important about this is the Financial Stability Oversight Council is a representation of Treasury, the Federal Reserve Bank, okay, and the other core financial institutions. But what's most important about it is it'll give them insight into, are there more systemically risky financial institutions that we should be overseeing or not? And ultimately, at the end of the day, should it be at the taxpayer's risk to be the one to stand there if a financial institution were to go out of business?
So is that a good thing for taxpayers, the fact that they're really trying to identify
that they're really trying to scrub it. So just to really contextualize this for you, to make it super simple, to me at the end of the day, what this is saying is we're going to look at the way financial institutions are set up today. And you know what? Maybe we need to go look back at Glass-Steagall and ask ourselves, should commercial banks and investment banks be together, number one? Who's responsible for them if they are too big to fail? What does the unwind process look like, and how does it affect the taxpayer? And ultimately, the reason they're looking at this right now, and I think this is extremely intelligent, is because we want to create jobs. We want to get small businesses back out there to get the lending that they need to create investment in the economy.
We heard that from the Secretary of the Treasury there, Steve Mnuchin.
Right, and in order to
jobs,
do that, you need
business.
these banks to have a little bit of the loosening of the regulations so that they can offer out that capital to people. So at the end of the day, this is a really smart process that they're undergoing right now.
All right, Alexis Glick, thank you for simplifying what we just witnessed. And I want to bring in right now CNN senior White House correspondent Jim Acosta, because I know you have some reporting and some insight into this tax reform package, which we heard the president allude to at the very least at the very end of that press moment. Jim.
Right. Well, you know, that's right. You heard the president there at the end of that event with the Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, which was really about unwinding banking regulations, something that the president has made a priority for his administration. You heard him there say that we're going to have an announcement on Wednesday on tax reform. He said something similar about this earlier today to the Associated Press. When checking on this within the last several minutes, I contacted a White House official who told me, well, that timing is a little bit squishy. It could be Wednesday. It could be, as the president said shortly thereafter in his comments to the Associated Press. The indication I was given is that this may not even happen next week. But of course, just in the last several minutes, you heard the president of the United States say over at the Treasury Department, no, we're going to be having this announcement on Wednesday. So perhaps this may be a situation when the president says it's going to happen on Wednesday, it's going to happen on Wednesday. But just to give our viewers some caution on this, Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, said in the last several weeks that yes, they definitely want to do tax reform. It's a high priority for this president. They had indicated earlier on in this administration that they wanted to start doing this, get this done by August. But just in the last several days, the Treasury Secretary has said, well, August may not be a realistic deadline. It may not happen until 2018. And so, I think it's safe to say at this point, this is not exactly nailed down, although you heard the president say there's going to be an announcement next week.
All right, Jim Acosta reporting from the White House. Our thanks to you. I want to bring in our panel, CNN political analyst David Drucker, senior correspondent of the Washington Examiner, also CNN senior political analyst Jennifer Granholm, who served as the Democratic governor of Michigan, and CNN political analyst Alex Burns, national political reporter for the New York Times. David, you hear what we just learned about this tax reform package. Can it really get done next week?
Well, the president could introduce it next week, but what we really don't know yet is, are we dealing with a tax reform package that would try and simplify the code and eliminate a lot of carve-outs and deductions that have a lot of very supportive and vocal constituencies, or are we talking about a tax cut plan? Cut corporate taxes, cut taxes for individuals, which would also affect many small businesses that file as individual taxpayers. And so that, to me, is the key there. What exactly is the president going to introduce, and are we going to find out for the first time? And we've known for a long time that he favors tax cuts and reducing regulations broadly, but we've never really been given an indication from the White House about where he stands on broad reform that would overhaul a lot of the ways in which people file their taxes, get things deducted, and things of that nature. So
right, you
there
talked
are a
about
lot
the simplification of the taxing system.
That is correct. And don't forget, House Republicans have been working for several months on a huge tax reform plan that would include what we call border adjustability, that would completely overhaul how we tax imports and exports. And we're still not totally clear on whether or not the president supports that plan. It's very contentious on Capitol Hill. Republicans in the Senate hate it. And so there are a lot of unanswered questions here. Next week could be a very interesting week in which we could at least learn where the president stands if he unveils something that's more broad in scope rather than simply relying on cuts.
Jennifer, is this a 100-day win if this tax reform legislation is introduced next week?
Introduction is not completion. I mean, the 100-day calendar for him means that he's going to have to jam about 40 items through Congress to be able to meet the promises that he made. He actually made 44, he said he was going to do 44 things in the first 100 days. Some of those have begun, for example, the Muslim ban, etc. Some of them have completely come off the table. This tax reform piece is a part of that, but he's not going to, certainly, as Dave suggests, it's way too complicated. And also, if he just did tax cuts, it would be trillions and trillions of dollars added to the deficit. This is going to, you know, we thought health care was hard. Tax reform is going to be so much more difficult. Dave Camp from Michigan 2 years ago did a whole very long effort of trying to figure out how to simplify the tax code, remove the loopholes, but he, behind the scenes, could not get everybody to agree. And in fact, you're not even going to get close to anybody agreeing, because every single loophole is something that somebody's attached to. You know, you're not going to eliminate, for example, mortgage deductions, which is a huge part of what the federal tax code allows. So bottom line is, if he just does tax cuts, it's huge addition to the deficit. I'm not sure those who are focused on deficit spending are going to like that.
You mentioned in there somewhere healthcare, which is what we were talking about, and the possibility of revisiting healthcare before the 100-day mark, which has been some of the discussion among the GOP who are in the House, as well as the president himself. So Alex, now he comes out with this headline on taxes. Does this take some of the heat away from trying to get something accomplished on healthcare?
Well, I think, you know, as David alluded to, we don't know a whole lot about what exactly the president supports on taxes, and or even the timeline that he wants to enact tax reform. He initially suggested, after the first health care proposal crash and burn, that he was just going to move on to taxes. Then he suggested that he really needs to do health care first, and we really need clarity on all this in the next week. And when you talk to Republicans in Washington who are somewhat closer to the details of the legislative process, they hear these pronouncements from the White House and they see them as really totally detached from the actual mechanisms of government. Because if you did drop a tax bill next week and ask Congress to take some kind of serious action on it in short order, and demand a vote on health care, and actually pass legislation to fund the government, that is a recipe for, you know, the legislative equivalent of an 18-car pileup.
You don't think it's going to happen, Jennifer? Well,
it ain't going to happen.
Let's say it could happen, though. Let's pretend it could happen. Let's pretend.
Well,
let's pretend for a second.
Okay, we live on Mars. Yes.
The question is, I mean, that would be huge, right? I mean, is it, David, is this that the Trump administration has a lack of experience in governing, and so that's why they're throwing out these huge pieces of legislation that are very complex and saying they can do it by this day, an arbitrary deadline?
Well, look, there's always a tension between the White House and Congress. We saw this with the Obama administration when he had a Democratic Congress, and there was always a lot of frustration there. And that's part of what we see in Washington. I think what's different here, excuse me, is that often this White House has put out general goals, but not a lot of parameters or principles by which they want Republicans in Congress to deliver. And I think that has created a lot of confusion, and it sometimes made things more difficult. And I do think in some of these high-stakes negotiations on health care, for instance, the fact that the president's point men did not have any experience in negotiating high-level legislative deals, or low-level legislative deals for that matter, played a huge part in why the deals didn't necessarily come together the way they might have. So I don't think we should make too much of the fact that the White House wants things that Congress may not be in a position to deliver. I do think it's important for the president to start to tell Congress what it is he wants as tax reform. What is he for and what is he against? I think that would help Republicans in Congress deliver for him. And I think his failure to do that, other than to say, I want to win and I want to get it done, is part of the problem that Republicans in town have been dealing with.
Jennifer, really quickly.
I agree 100% on that. No, I mean, the president does not have a core. His core is about getting a victory in Congress or somewhere. He's not going to come and say, I will only accept this. He just wants to be able to show at 100 days that he has more than 5 things that he's been able to achieve, and that's a big problem.
David Drucker, Jennifer Granholm, and Alex Burns, we have to leave it there. Thank you. Up next for the